Now, I thought about doing a top 10 best WrestleMania matches of all time video. The problem with doing that, though, is that narrowing down my favorite WrestleMania matches down to just 10 and then ranking those matches would probably cause my head to explode, because there's just too many. I mean, there's too many great matches, too many great moments, and all sorts of stuff that narrowing down a favorites list down to 10 would just be way, way too hard, especially with 3 decades worth of material to work with. So take solace in the fact that there's actually a lot more good at WrestleMania than there is bad. That said, today we're going to highlight the bad matches. My picks for the top 10 worst matches in WrestleMania history, and this list was actually extremely easy to make. I knew right where to go with this one. And rest assured, I'm going to be picking the really bad ones, like the ones that actually did damage to the show. Like, you know, don't be cute and throw matches at me like the Hart Foundation versus the Bolsheviks at WrestleMania 6. That was an 18-second match that ultimately wasn't going to have much impact anyway. It wasn't a heavily built match or anything. It was just another match. It was a filler match. That to me isn't bad. If I'm talking about Super Bowls, Super Bowl 42, nobody remembers that Eli Manning threw a pick in the first half. It was a mistake. It was bad. But ultimately, it didn't matter in the long run. I'm talking about the stuff that really had a negative impact. Again, if I'm going to go through Super Bowl history, I'm talking about things like Jackie Smith dropping that pass in the end zone at 13, or John Casey kicking the ball out of bounds at 38, and starting Tom Brady on the 40-yard line for the winning drive, or Scott Norwood missing the kick wide right at 25, or Joe Theismann throwing the pick six at the end of the half at 18. I'm talking about the really, really bad stuff. Or I throw one more Super Bowl in there. Super Bowl 30, O'Donnell throwing those picks to Larry Brown. Who the fuck was he throwing to? Larry Brown, I guess, but no, I'm talking about the WrestleMania matches that really negatively impacted not just the shows they were on, but WrestleMania's legacy as a whole. Like the really bad failures at WrestleMania that really live on as sort of a hall of shame for wrestling fans everywhere. So without further ado, here are my picks for the top 10 worst matches in WrestleMania history.
You guys, listen to this song I just wrote. It's called I Hate You Guys. I hate you guys. You guys are assholes.
I hate this match so goddamn much, and I think I'm the only one that hates this match with such an unrivaled passion. And I just rewatched this match recently, and I thought, hey, maybe it's not as bad as I remembered it. And then, sure enough, I started watching it, and I just started getting angry, and even angrier than that. And this match has a horrible effect on me, to where I just get angry, loathsome, and just unappealing to be around. I'm sure it has the effect on me that a lot of bad movies do, where I just get so pissed off that I need to vent. Like, this video is going to be therapeutic in a sense, because this match is just goddamn horrendous. I don't care what anybody says. A lot of people have told me they like this match. I haven't heard too many people tell me it's a classic, but people have told me that they like this match, to which I say, fine, it's great, good for you. I fucking despise it. I think it's one of the worst WrestleMania main events. It was one of the worst times I've ever had while watching a pay-per-view match of any kind, much less a WrestleMania main event. I should note that I had it down, for the 10 spot, I had it down to either this match or John Cena versus JBL at WrestleMania 21. And that match was so horribly booked and so anticlimactic as both a start to John Cena's reign and an end to JBL's, that match is definitely, that's the honorable mention. I mean, that match was just a failure on every level and deserves any hate that it gets. But this one just pisses me off more, to the point that I'm sitting here thinking about it. I'm not even sure where to begin. First of all, I guess I'll start with the entrances. The entrances were fucking atrocious. And it's funny because before the match started, they were doing like these backstage things with them and trying to hype it like it's a serious fight. And I'm like, well, okay, I don't like that they're doing this main event, but at least they're they're trying something good. And then, of course, they come out. Triple H is dressed like Conan the Barbarian for God knows what reason. I'm convinced that Triple H is a He-Man and the Masters of the Universe fan because last year at 28 he came out and the set looked like fucking Castle Grayskull, and this year he looks like Conan, and He-Man is basically just G-rated Conan, so... yeah, whatever he was going for, he looked absolutely ridiculous. And then John Cena comes out with the whole gangster setup, and that was even more ridiculous. And then the match starts. Cena's offense looks absolutely horrendous. I mean, rewatching it again, I forgot how bad Cena was back then. I mean, he's actually improved quite considerably since then, but his offense looked atrocious in this match. And this match also started the boo-yay punches, which I really can't stand, and everybody does them now. And the reason I don't like the boo-yay punches is because it's such an obvious theatrical thing to get a rise out of the crowd, but it doesn't look like they're actually fighting each other. It just looks like, okay, I'm going to punch you, and then you're going to stagger around and do that for a little bit, and then you're going to come back and punch me, and then I'm going to stagger around, and then and it's just going to be that back and forth until it gets boring. And I've seen so many people do it, and it looks so hokey and just unbelievable. I don't believe that they're actually fighting each other. I believe that they're just trying to get a rise out of the crowd. And there are obvious, theatrical things that wrestling does like that, like the punches in the corner, but at least that's one guy punching another guy with no comeback. So like, I can buy that. But that's just, but whatever. The booyah punches started here, and it just pisses me off. That gives me one reason to hate this match, because I really don't like those. Also, and I think the major failing of the match is that, it's kind of like what I've talked about in other videos about Diesel being a babyface or Brock Lesnar being a babyface. With Cena, you can times that by about 10, because I absolutely cannot fucking stand him as a babyface. Sometimes it works if you have him going up against a face that I like, or even if you put him up against somebody that stands for something that I can believe in. And they basically take advantage of the fact that Cena's character sucks. Perfect examples would be Money in the Bank 2011 and One Night Stand 2006 against Rob Van Dam. Those matches is like, yeah, Cena sucks as a babyface, and it totally works to the benefit of the story. They basically use him as the heel in those situations. But that's not what you have here. What you have here is a babyface that was virtually hated by, if not the entire crowd, a vast majority of it. JR on commentary, God bless him, he was trying to explain why the fans are booing him and defending him and stuff, and it's like, oh, JR, God bless you for trying, but no. Just no. And in this case, you're putting him up against a heel that at this point, at the best case scenario, I was completely apathetic towards in Triple H, because it's like, all right, we've seen it. He's the game. He's, King of Kings, whatever. We've seen this. The cerebral assassin, I'm the best in the business, blah, 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 blah. It had gotten old a long time ago, before this. And, they were selling Cena as the underdog, even though he'd been champion for, except for Edge's reign, he'd been champion for the entire 12 months. The previous 12 months. So, minus what, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever that was. And Triple H's previous year, he'd pretty much sucked. He'd lost to Batista 3 times, lost to JR, got his butt kicked by Ric Flair once, struggled with Big Show, lost the Royal Rumble. I mean, Triple H wasn't coming into this match with a whole lot of momentum. It was just a guy writing off past successes, and Cena had been like the dominant guy for a year or so, but Cena's the underdog. I'm like, yeah, okay, bullshit. And they'd done stuff in the build-up that really made Cena look stupid. Like, Triple H would go in there like, well, your best move is pumping up your Reeboks, and you're not really that good. And then Cena takes the mic like the dope that he is and says, well, you're right, Triple H, I'm not that good. So, okay, so I just had the top babyface tell me that he's not that good, but he's going to fight, and he's going to try his best. And, yeah, real compelling stuff there. And basically what you had here was, for me, if the Super Bowl was the New England Patriots versus the Dallas Cowboys, who the fuck am I supposed to root for in that situation? Or if you, okay, let's take this past Super Bowl. If you're a Steelers fan, who the fuck are you supposed to root for in that situation? The San Francisco 49ers, who, if they win, would tie your Super Bowl record, or the Baltimore Ravens, who are your fucking enemies? I mean, it's a no-win situation. So I'm just sitting there like, all right, either I get another boring Triple H title reign, or the ungodly reign of John Cena continues. Gee, I don't know. And some of you might be thinking that, me saying that because of that, this match is boring, and I do. I think the match is horrendously boring. And all that stuff. You might be thinking, well, you're just butthurt because Edge wasn't in the main event this year. Damn right! It still pisses me off to this day, and you're damn right I'm pissed off about it, because Edge was the best villain that they had. They built him up tremendously well. He suffered no comeuppance for the things that he did to people, like ruin Kane's life, ruin Matt Hardy's life, mocked Ric Flair and defeated him, stole the title from John Cena. You literally had the hottest heel in wrestling. He stole the girlfriend from Matt Hardy and then fucked her on live TV after he won the title. He's the hottest heel in the fucking company, and you can't get that to WrestleMania? I mean, could you at least meet me halfway and get him to WrestleMania? No, he just has to drop the belt after 3 weeks and get put into a program with Foley that literally just rehashes the Orton feud from 2 years earlier. Okay, great, real compelling. I'm so glad we couldn't have Edge in the main event. Instead, we got this instead. It was just wonderful, and I find it hilarious that a month later, at WrestleMania, this match, in my opinion, bombed, and Edge and Foley stole the show, and then a month later, the match is Cena, Triple H, and Edge in a three-way, which is what it probably should have been at WrestleMania, or Edge versus Cena one-on-one, or whatever. I mean, Edge should have been the constant no matter what, and I think it got to a point where Edge was so good they just couldn't ignore it anymore, but you damn right I'm pissed off that they took him out of the main event for Mania 21 just to do a bullshit match that I never wanted to see. And they were going to do it again! They were going to do it at WrestleMania 23. I mean, on the Heartbreak and Triumph DVD for Shawn Michaels, Triple H confirmed that. It was supposed to be him and Cena in a rematch, to which I say, oh, great, because I loved it so much the first time. Great, wonderful. And, because God basically struck down Triple H and, he tore his quad again. It was almost like God said, no, we are not getting that shit again. So thank God that rematch didn't take place at WrestleMania. But every time I've ever seen them have a rematch, it seems like the matches keep getting worse. I remember they had a match on Raw. It was the Ted DiBiase episode of the guest host era of 2009. And they were in the main event that night. And I swear to God, it was one of the worst matches I've ever seen. It was worse than this one I'm talking about. So every time they have a rematch, it gets progressively worse. I don't know how that happens, but it is what it is. And I hated this match. It was so awful, and it makes me weep every time well, not weep, but it makes me so sad and horrified every time I think about it. I think it's one of Mania's worst main events, and whatever, that's just how I feel.
It stinks. It stinks. It stinks. It stinks. It stinks.
Now, you know me. You know that I'm a big New York Giants fan. I love the Giants, and although I have major issues with some of his antics off the field, I do admit that Lawrence Taylor is one of, if not the greatest Giant to ever put on a uniform and play for us. He basically changed the way defenses are done and how offenses prepare for defenses. He was that influential of a player. And the concept of mixing celebrities in with wrestling is not a bad idea. In theory, it's actually paid off a lot of times. I mean, Mr. T obviously worked out, and William Perry at Mania 2 obviously worked out, and I thought WWE did some cool stuff with Floyd Money Mayweather. I thought WCW did some good stuff with Rodman early on. I thought the first tag match they did with him was actually pretty good. I'm sure I could think of other examples, but mixing a celebrity with wrestling can work. Mike Tyson, even though he didn't wrestle, but Mike Tyson, they obviously got a lot out of that. All of that said, and again, the feud between LT and Bam Bam wasn't that bad. They did some good stuff in the promotion of it. For a Mania, that was absolutely terrible. That match was actually interesting on paper. All of that said, the match didn't work. The match just did not work, and LT looked like a guy who was having his first match, and that was really the main problem with it, is that he clearly looked like a novice, and the match just wasn't really well put together or that exciting. Even though they had a lot of good stuff going into it. Some people were pissed off that it was the main event, but I'm like, fuck it, that main event was horrible. It would have been bad anyway, and Shawn and Diesel wasn't that great either. I mean, I already talked about that, so who got fucked over in that case? Nobody. The people who paid for WrestleMania got fucked over. That's who. And they were fucked over the second they put their money down. LT main eventing had nothing to do with that. But it was a bad match. That unfortunately didn't live up to whatever nice idea they had lined up for it. It just wasn't very good. And LT, just didn't look like a wrestler. And it was unfortunate because, like I said, there were some good ideas there, but it tanked. It was pretty bad. Some people label it as the worst WrestleMania main event of all time. I wouldn't go that far, but it's pretty bad.
What the hell was that?
I mean, absolutely no disrespect to Japanese culture. I've never been to Japan. I'm sure it's a very nice place, very lovely, and I know they have cultural things that they like that don't really appeal to Americans like myself. I understand that. Two cultures, two different cultures, different likes and dislikes. I understand that. It's perfectly understandable. However, at no point in my life, no point. I don't even have to think too hard about that. No point in my life have I ever wanted to see two fat guys in thongs slap each other and push each other. That's never been a desire of mine to watch. I don't view that as much of a spectator sport. It's just not for me, just not my thing. And I sure as hell never wanted to see Big Show in a thong. So, this match sucked, just for that reason.
Well, this sucks.
Well, we got another main event here. Unlucky 13. Undertaker versus Sid at WrestleMania 13. Now, this one truthfully doesn't anger me like a lot of the other bad main events do, because I really can't blame Undertaker or Sid for what happened here. And I know Sid's a limited worker, and I know a lot of people, people make fun of him for being bad and everything. I understand that. But really, I mean, I look at this and it's like, you just can't make this work. I mean, yes, I understand that Shawn Michaels lost his smile and, had to drop the title, and that pretty much left them with nothing. No long-term plan for what the main event at WrestleMania was going to be. They really just had to kind of make up something on the fly, and what they did, they came up with Undertaker versus champion Sid for WrestleMania. Which is kind of sad. There was no real animosity built between the two. There was no long-term feud or anything. And looking back on it, to make this work at least a little bit, and again, you can't do this because they pretty much planned on Shawn being the champion. Once that flew out the window, everything just kind of went to hell and collapsed from there. The only really golden nugget that came out of that was Bret versus Austin in the submission match. That was really the only positive that came out of that. But this main event was it was boring. There was no reason to care beyond, the only reason I cared about this match back then was like, well, at least I get to see Undertaker win the belt. Because I'm sitting there like, well, he's got to win this one, right? I mean, because Taker hadn't been champion for almost 6 years. And I'm just like, okay, he's going to win the title this time, right? Because it's fucking Sid, for God's sakes. And it's WrestleMania. I mean, he's going to win the belt. And then they even managed to ruin that by having Bret Hart attack Sid, essentially turning Sid face. And then at the end of the match, he cost Sid the match. And so the one thing that this match had going for it, which was a clean Undertaker victory, it was tainted. So congratulations, you even fucked that up. The match was just really boring, and the reason it was boring is because you didn't have a reason to really care about these two fighting each other, because there was no animosity, no built-in storyline, no nothing. It was just a pile of nothing. And that's basically the best way to describe this main event. And it'll always be remembered as one of the weakest in WrestleMania's entire history. And again, you really can't put the blame on either guy, because it was just an undesirable situation that they found themselves in. But that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I had to get another Triple H main event in there. I just had to, because, I mean, that guy, except for the main event at 20, and the Batista match at 21, and that match is, it's not great, it's only okay. It's like, it's okay, it's passable. But other than those two, whenever Triple H has main evented WrestleMania, like, it's been a disaster. Like, 16, WrestleMania 2000, the 4-way itself is not a bad match, but the ending was so terrible that it just kind of ruined the whole thing. And then at 18, the match with Jericho, that was a disaster because it was, they thought it was a wise idea to make the world champion look like a bitch. And then at 22, I already talked about the match at 22. And then you got this match, and it's, oh my god, this one was his absolute worst. And hopefully the last time he's ever in the main event at WrestleMania, because it was just so awful. Oh my god. And the worst thing I can say about this match is that it was boring. It was ungodly slow, horrendously boring. The crowd obviously didn't give a shit. And basically, and this is kind of the problem with all of the Orton Triple H matches, I mean, Triple H is basically the bane of Randy Orton's career. And I don't mean Bane the Batman villain, I mean Bane the word, like as in the biggest negative impact on Randy Orton's career. He is just, every time they work with each other, Orton gets absolutely destroyed. And I remember when they did the concussion angle after Royal Rumble 2005, I think it was, and that match was basically a squash match, and they did a stretcher match, which Orton won, yet the pay-per-view still ended with Triple H beating the shit out of him and standing tall. So it's like, Orton is never allowed to look strong against Triple H, for whatever reason. I don't know why. And this match was no different. By the time the match was over, he had punted him in the head, given him a sledgehammer shot, and by the time he set him up for the pedigree, it's kind of like that episode of The Simpsons where Homer beat up the Hamburglar, and the kid in the crowd is like, "Stop! He's already dead." It was kind of like that. It's like, dude, you just pedigreed a corpse. We get it. You kicked his ass. Again, we get it. And I had major problems with the storyline, too, because me personally, I could not, in my mind, view Randy Orton as the heel. And the reason I couldn't is because, okay, how did he start building his heat? By attacking the McMahon. Specifically, it started when he punted Vince McMahon in the head. Why did he punt Vince McMahon in the head? Because Vince McMahon was about to fire him for no reason, because Vince McMahon is a douchebag and an abusive son of a bitch that makes lives miserable for everybody. This is the character I'm talking about, by the way. This is the character that's been presented to us. And his family are terrible people, too, by the way. Again, this is what has been built and presented for years. This isn't just me. I mean, this is what we've been told for years. And now, all of a sudden, this guy finally says, you know what? Fuck you, and kicks the motherfucker in the head because he was going to fire him for no reason because he's on a goddamn power trip. And I remember that same exact segment, he bitched out Jericho right before that for no reason other than to bitch out Jericho and to stroke his own ego. So this is the character, people, and I'm supposed to feel sorry for him? And then his family turns around and they try to screw him over at every end, and then, you know what, he kicks their asses too. Shane and Stephanie, yeah, fuck you. I'm like, you abusive sons of bitches. I'd be, dude, how can you not root for Randy? He's basically Stone Cold Steve Austin at this point. Because it's like, who the fuck? I'm supposed to feel sorry for you people? You're horrible people. And then he revealed, it's like, look, the reason I'm targeting Triple H is because that motherfucker kicked me out of Evolution and stole the title from me. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Good for you, Randy. I mean, my God. I just could not, in my mind, view Randy Orton as the heel in that situation, although they wanted to. Other problems with the build-up, the home invasion angle, which was so... I mean, okay, here's the comparison I'm going to make. Look at the Steve Austin, Brian Pillman home invasion angle, and then look at the one between Triple H and Randy Orton, and tell me which one feels more realistic. Tell me which one feels like something that's actually happening in real time and feels more tense and dangerous. To me, the Randy Orton Triple H one, with all its camera angles and you know everything, it looked like something out of a bad movie. It didn't look like Randy Orton was in any kind of real danger. It just looked like it looked like a bad movie. Whereas Austin and Pillman look like, oh my God, this looks like something that's actually happening, and it's kind of scary and kind of fucking, you know, crazy. I know people look down on that segment, but as far as like terms of how to shoot it and everything, I felt like the Austin Pillman one came off much better. You know, with or without the gun, which I think that was the point of contention for most people in that segment, was the you know, Brian Pillman waving around a gun. But and then the week before Raw, Orton cuts this whole big promo about how he's going to be the next Triple H and he's going to win at Mania and everything. And then Randy Orton comes out with Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon. So, okay, so even if you buy Orton as the heel, they just undid all his heat because the people he hurt are back. And then Triple H kicks his ass right before WrestleMania. And I'm like, well, fuck. Like, so what reason is there for Triple H to get revenge on him? He just kicked his ass. He's already the champion. And the people that Orton hurt are back now. So, way to go. And I'm thinking the only way they can save this is if Orton wins at Mania. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. And sure enough, it didn't. Because like I said, Triple H pedigreed a corpse after a really long, really boring match. Easily one of the worst WrestleMania main events of all time. So, yeah, this was a disaster of unmitigated proportions.
I win.
This is bullshit!
Now, this is the worst main event in WrestleMania history. Hulk Hogan versus Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9 for the WWF Championship. A match that was made on the fly and ended in about 30 seconds as Hogan won the title, shortly after Yoko had won it from Bret Hart. That is the biggest load of political bullshit I have ever seen on display in all of WWE history. I mean, Triple H, what he's done, got nothing on what Hulk pulled at WrestleMania 9. That is, it's almost admirable in a way. It's like, wow, you were actually able to get the promoters to go along with you on that one. That is remarkable. I mean, good Lord. I mean, I could forgive it if it was used to set up Hogan and Bret, which is a match I definitely feel should have happened. Never did. So that just gives me more reason to hate on this. And it was just bullshit. I mean, even as a young kid, and I turned 8 years old, like, right before WrestleMania 9. And even then, I could kind of sense, like, that's not right. Like, something that's so screwy that it almost shouldn't happen. And, that kind of stuff would run rampant in WCW, especially in the dying days. But this was something that just shouldn't have happened. Bret Hart royally got screwed. I mean, he was the biggest victim in the whole thing. It was a slap in the face more than anything else. It was just embarrassing to try and pull something like that off. I mean, yeah, it was shocking and it got a headline. I understand that. And it was certainly newsworthy. I will say that. Had the internet been around back then, holy crap. Well, I mean, had the internet been readily available to most households back then, oh Lord, you would have, that would have been fascinating. That would have made Sheamus and Daniel Bryan and that whole, all the discussion that went on with that match, that would have made that seem like peanuts. But, yeah, this was just horseshit. There's no other way to put it, really.
Fucking bullshit!
Well, I said in a previous video that the entire attitude of WrestleMania 15 seemed to be, we're hot shit right now, so it doesn't matter what we do. We'll just throw shit up there and you're going to buy it because we're, the brand is just red hot right now. And that was pretty much, the feeling I got, while watching the show, because they clearly didn't care about a lot of what they booked. And this match right here, first of all, they made it a Hell in a Cell match because, there was a lot of buzz surrounding, following, the Shawn Michaels and Undertaker match, and then especially after the Shawn Michaels Mankind match, that they thought Hell in a Cell was just an awesome attraction that they just wanted to put at WrestleMania. Regardless of whether or not the story warranted it, or regardless of whether or not both guys were actually heels, both guys were heels going, well, for some reason the Ministry of Darkness was actually cheered early on. It was really weird, but they were supposed to be heels, clearly. And whether or not either guy could actually put on a good match. I mean, Bossman was so far past his prime at this point, it was sad, and Undertaker was injury-riddled and was basically a broken-down mess at this point. It's no surprise that towards the end of the year he eventually took time off and then was gone until halfway through 2000. because he was just beat up, and there was no way that this match was going to be good. Not a chance. And sure enough, it wasn't. It only served to destroy, or not destroy, but tarnish the legacy of Hell in a Cell, especially since those first two matches were so, worthwhile and so, like once-in-a-lifetime type of matches, the way that they took place, that to have that go down, that Taker Bossman match was just it was a slap in the face of the legacy of Hell in a Cell. And in my personal opinion, it's the worst match of Undertaker's career. Not just his worst WrestleMania match. I think it's flat out the worst match of his career. It's either this or the Concrete Crip match from Great American Bash 04, which does not get enough hate, by the way. I've said that before. That match needs to be hated more. It needs to be more notorious. I don't know why that match never gets as much hate as it should. I'm going to assume it's because nobody saw the pay-per-view, because the thing that was really... I'm getting sidetracked here, but I don't care. The thing that really floors me about that is that the next year, Great American Bash 05 got so many negative reviews and was so hated and was labeled one of the worst pay-per-views of all time. And I'm like, did you see last year's Great American Bash? And because that match, that show as a whole is much worse and never got any of the bashing that the 05 show did. So I'm just going to assume that nobody saw the 04 show. That's what I'm going to assume. And that any review of it, they were just... it was just word of mouth from somebody else that wrote a review. It was like only 2 people saw it, and they were just regurgitating. That's what I'm going to assume. But anyway, this Hell in a Cell match was awful. It was boring. Both guys looked horribly out of shape. The only cool thing that came out of it was the visual of Bossman getting hanged at the end. But even that, was that really worth doing a Hell in a Cell match? I don't think so. Personally, I feel like, because they were doing the Ministry versus Corporation thing, that they probably should have done Bossman and maybe 2 or 3 other guys versus The Undertaker and a few members of the Ministry. And do like a 10-man tag or an 8-man tag or even a 6-man tag. Something like that. Making it a Hell in a Cell match, just, making it a Hell in a Cell match raises the standard of what we're supposed to expect out of that type of match, even if it doesn't raise expectations, because I don't think anybody expected a good match out of those two, but there's a certain standard that it has to live up to, and there's no way in hell it can meet it, and sure enough, it crashed and burned horribly, so much so that they act like that this match never happened. On the Hell in a Cell DVD, they left this match off, though they included the 2 Hell in a Cells that happened on Raw in 1998 that nobody remembers. It's like, all right, those matches are worth having, but not the one that happened at WrestleMania. That is hilarious. But that's just how bad this match was. It was an absolute train wreck.
That's it? That's the best you got?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
The saddest thing about this match is that when it first happened, I thought, well, that's the worst match in WrestleMania history. That'll never be topped. And it's actually been topped twice since then, which disturbs me greatly. This match, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 20, it was actually a dream match for people. People wanted to see this match. There had been talks, even rumors, I don't know if it was true, but there had been talks that this was actually going to close the show. But then it was announced that Brock Lesnar was leaving the WWE, the guy that they had put so much promotion into for 2 years. I mean, he was the guy. I mean, he was the poster boy of the company. He was the guy that they put, so much into. He was their boy. He was their big project. I mean, he was the main event attraction, more than anybody else, even Triple H. He's just the guy that they invested everything into. And then when it was announced that he was leaving to go to the NFL, that made major headlines. And I remember, a lot of discussion going on leading into WrestleMania about it. What the hell happened? Why that happened? What's going on? Is it real? Is it not real? What's going on? And obviously, the live crowd in MSG, they heard those same announcements, those same headlines, and obviously it was a very internet-heavy, crowd, very internet-savvy, I should say. And they let Lesnar have it, and it was, oh boy, it was bad. It was from the word go. right away, they start singing the na 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 hey 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 goodbye song. They started chanting for Austin. They started chanting for Hogan at one point. They started chanting for Bret at one point. They started chanting, this match sucks. Eventually, they started off cheering for Goldberg because they hated Lesnar so much, but then when the match tanked as bad as it did, then they turned on Goldberg and started booing the fuck out of him. It was, oh my God, it was so bad. And it was, you know, the match is really only notable for the crowd reaction because the action inside the ring was so ungodly boring that, you know, what else is there to talk about besides the fans absolutely shitting on this match? And again, I point this out. This was supposed to be a big main event. This was supposed to be one of the big matches. This is one of the matches they hyped the most for the show. It was one of the star attractions, and like I said, there were rumors that it was even going to close. And my God, for it to bomb that badly, I can't think of too many majorly hyped matches that bombed that badly and to that degree. And you know, it was one of those things. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people thought that Lesnar was never going to be back. Of course, he's back now, but you know, he's going to be working with Triple H at WrestleMania 29, and I got to imagine, even though I do not want to see that match, I've got to imagine, you know, he's got to do better this time, right? I mean, he can't possibly get any worse, but yeah, Goldberg and Lesnar, this was, it's a bizarre match for sure, but for a time, I honestly thought it was the worst match in WrestleMania history, but little did I know what was coming up the pike.
Fucking thing sucks!
I'm going to ask a really stupid question. I can't believe I actually have to ask this question. But why did the WWE think it was a good idea for a guy in his 60s and a guy who can't take bumps because of his health condition? Why do they think that that match needs to be 15 minutes long? Why on earth would you give it that much time? And okay, like the idea for doing Bret versus Vince is not a bad idea. Okay, you do the feud, you do the build-up and everything. It's like, yeah, okay, we get it. It's fine. And Bret's back, and that's cool and everything. And he's going to, you know, humiliate Vince at WrestleMania. And, you know, everybody goes home happy. And that's what we're going to get. Finally, some kind of a payoff to the Montreal Screwjob. And that was the whole reason for doing this. I could have booked that same match, and it would have probably been a minute and a half, at the longest, a minute and a half long. Because it's like, look, just go in there, Vince or Bret hits him with a fucking steel pipe, beats the shit out of him, puts him in the sharpshooter, he taps out, it's over. That's all you need to do. Because the only thing we're supposed to get out of this is the satisfaction of Vince McMahon getting his ass kicked. And instead, we got him getting his ass kicked, but we got it stretched out forever. For fucking ever. And they brought out the Hart family, and Vince is like, oh, I paid them off. And that's the worst Vince McMahon ever. I'm sorry. And then Bret's like, screw you. They're on my side. So there's absolutely no drama there. And basically they just bounced Vince around in the most boring way possible. And then Bret just kicked him and, you know, teased the sharpshooter, but didn't do it after like 3 or 4 teases or whatever. And it just kept going. And it just kept going. And going. And going, and going, and going, and going. And I just couldn't believe that they gave the match as much time as it did. It's like you can't... Just the sheer mechanics of it. You got a man in his 60s and a man that can't take bumps. That's your match. You keep it a minute and a half at the longest. And they decided not to do that. The match bombed horribly. And, you know, it was the first Vince McMahon match at WrestleMania to really tank. And, you know, Bret said in his book that his match with Bob Backlund at Mania 11 was the worst pay-per-view match of his career. It was true at the time. Not anymore, because this match happened. And it was just so bad. It was really bad. Again, it's one of those things, it was so simple. It should have been so easy to book. And they just had to overcomplicate it and basically make things harder on themselves. And sure enough, the match tanked. It was horrible. And it was an absolute disaster to the point that I was like, I really wish they didn't bring Bret back now, because that was just... I feel like Bret tarnished his legacy with this match. It was that bad and just executed that horribly. It just didn't need to happen.
was, without a doubt, the worst episode ever.
Oh my god, in heaven, this match. What the fuck happened here? Oh, Lord Almighty. Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler. And to illustrate why I think this is the worst WrestleMania match, because I really fought with myself for a while, like when it first happened, I'm like, was that the worst WrestleMania match of all time? And I finally settled on yes, and here's why. I'm going to go through all the other matches I just listed. Triple H and John Cena, okay, in their minds, they're thinking this is the two biggest stars, and they want to put them in the main event. Okay, I don't like it, but at least I understand the thought process behind it. LT and Bam Bam, you want to get some mainstream attention by putting a football player in the main event. Okay, I understand that. The sumo match, even the sumo match, I can see, okay, maybe there's some kind of international market they want to cater to, and get some crossover appeal with, the Japanese market or something by using Akebono. Okay, maybe I can understand that one a little bit. Sid and Undertaker, like I said, that couldn't be helped. It couldn't be saved. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place there. Oh my God. Triple H and Randy Orton, again, they probably thought they had a really good story there. They probably thought, it's like, all right, we're going to do the match we probably should have done in 2005, and, they thought they were building a really good heel and a really good babyface. That's probably, I can at least understand the thought process to it, even though it bombed horribly. WrestleMania 9, okay, I guess I can understand trying to squeeze every last bit that you can out of Hogan before he goes, or maybe possibly setting up a Bret Hart and Hogan match and hopefully getting Hogan to agree to it down the road. I can kind of see what they were thinking, even if it was horrible. Taker and Bossman, again, they thought they could just throw Hell in a Cell on there and it would be all well and good. And while that's horrible logic, at least I know what they were thinking. Goldberg and Lesnar, that was supposed to be a big match. They couldn't count on Lesnar leaving and the fans knowing about it and getting pissed off about it, so okay. I see what happened there. Brett and Vince, it was, it was a 13-year-old story that they, could work with or do whatever they wanted to with, and they wanted to give fans that big pop at Mania. Just because they made the match too long and horrible and completely lacking in any kind of drama, that's just bad execution. I understand the reason for doing the match. I cannot, for the life of me, even to this day, figure out what the hell they were thinking when they did this match. I can't understand why they thought it was a good idea to hype this match by making Jerry Lawler a WWE title contender, and why they thought that was a good idea. I, for the life of me, will never understand why, I don't know who it was, somebody in WWE thought, hey, you know who needs to be our top heel? Michael fucking Cole. And he was the top heel on the show for God knows how long. And, I don't know why they thought, hey, you know what should be one of the WrestleMania main events? A battle between two announcers. Because, when I was a kid, I totally wanted to see Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura tangle up. And at least they were trained wrestlers. Michael Cole, why was there so much fascination with this? I don't understand. And here's the problem with them being announcers on the same show. They talk to each other throughout the show, and they argue throughout the show. So we had to listen to them argue and bicker and just yell at each other for 2 hours straight. Thank God Raw wasn't 3 hours back then. But for 2 hours straight, we had to listen to them argue and bicker. And that's in addition to the segments that are specifically dedicated to hyping this match. Somebody in WWE thought that this match needed more attention than anything else. And keep in mind, they'd just gotten Rock back. Undertaker had made his return. Triple H has made his return. Miz was the WWE champion and was going to be facing John Cena. But nope, this was the match that got the most hype. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand who thought that was a good idea. I really don't. And I thought, at the worst, I'm like, okay, I hate that they're doing this match. I hate that they're giving it, 10 times as much hype as they are anything else. But it's going to be like a 30-second match where Cole gets his ass kicked and Lawler gets his big, pop or whatever, and everybody goes home happy. And that's what we're going to get. They made the exact same goddamn mistake that they made the year before with Brett and Vince. And it was almost like they learned nothing. It's like, look, here's what you have here. You have a man in his 60s having a match with a guy who has never been trained to do anything. Why did you think it was a good idea to give them 15 minutes? And not just 15 minutes. It wasn't even just... The match itself, bell to bell, was like 15 minutes. But it was all the stuff before the match, after the match, and it just would not fucking end. It would not fucking end. Because then it's like, oh, well, now we have to have Booker do the spin-a-rooney, and now we have to have Austin give everybody the stunner, and then we have to do a lot of stupid comedy shit with a computer that said that Michael Cole actually won the match. It was just... And the match itself was so boring and so horrible, and watching Michael Cole have to control the match because he's the heel, for a majority of it was just downright... It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And I'm just sitting there... Oh, and by the way, a Daniel Bryan match had to be dropped. Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus for the U.S. title had to be dropped because this match needed the ungodly amount of time that it got. Just saying. And of course Michael Cole won because the computer said so. Because, I love the Raw GM so goddamn much. That was another stupid thing that they did for way too long. And so by having Michael Cole win, the only thing you had is like, oh, well, Jerry's going to get his big positive win, and that you'll get your feel-good moment at WrestleMania. So, okay, so that didn't happen, so the entire thing was pointless. The whole build-up, the whole storyline, all of it was just completely goddamn pointless. Oh, they needed to do rematches. That was the next thing. There needed to be rematches. They did them the next 2 pay-per-views, and then they kept it going for another year, it felt. It just would not end. It went on forever, and I'm like, it couldn't end at Mania. It really couldn't end at Mania. We had to keep running with Michael Cole. This was something that just needed to happen. Okay, thank you very much. And, some people, going into WrestleMania, some people defended this match to me. Like, look, it's just going to be a comedy match, and it's going to be short, and Lawler's going to get a feel-good win, and those are worthwhile things to have. So stop complaining. It's going to be fine. And then this match happened, and again, the Daniel Bryan match got dropped, so, again, you happy? And it got an ungodly amount of time, and it was boring as hell, and it was absolutely terrible, and it served absolutely no purpose in the grand scheme of things other than to push announcers as the main focus of WrestleMania. That's all it did. I mean, granted, based on its build-up, it, by all rights, should have been the main event. It should have been the closer, because that was the match they built up the most. That was the match that they told us on a weekly basis was the most heated, was the most... they got the longest build-up out of any Mania match going in that year. Because, Taker and Triple H, that didn't start until February. And Rock and Cena, they were starting their stuff. And, Miz and Cena kind of got lost in the shuffle because of that. And that only got a month's worth of build anyway. And... Edge and Del Rio. Del Rio won the Rumble, and they did almost nothing to build that up in a significant way. And like I said, Daniel Bryan and Sheamus for the U.S. title, that was just a filler match anyway, and it was so unimportant it got bumped off the card. Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler, I believe the build-up had started in November or December. And that was the one that they put all their eggs... That was the basket they put all their eggs into for this particular WrestleMania. And no positive came from it. Nothing. It was just... I don't understand why they did it. I don't know... I guess I can blame Vince McMahon because he's a weird enough dude to think a lot of the stuff they did was funny. I don't know. But it was awful. It was just horrendous. And one of the worst things I've ever seen, certainly the worst thing I've ever seen at WrestleMania. And Again, it was just a complete exercise in pointlessness. There was no reason for this match to take place. There was no reason for it to get hyped up as much as it was. And there was no reason for it to get as much time as it did at WrestleMania. It was just... I'll never understand this. Like, the thought process that went into this match, why it happened, why it was as long as it was, all of it. I'll never understand what they were thinking when they decided to do this. And to me, without question, it is the worst match in WrestleMania history. Nothing else touches it. Nothing.
You guys, listen to this song I just wrote. It's called I Hate You Guys. I hate you guys. You guys are assholes. Especially Kenny. I hate him the most. Okay, now let's try one all together. I hate you guys. Come on, you guys know the words.